Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's see what happens.
Like, bitch, what? Call my goddamn husband. That's what I want. Woo, it's telling me, God!
You don't defend me. You don't. And I came clean today. And I apologized.
I literally had to sit there in the jacuzzi.
So, you didn't defend me. Defend what exactly? What should she have said? No, Ed never interrupts anybody. He never pontificates. That never happens. And maybe it doesn't. It's hard for us to know. Of course, I can't imagine a single human being who watched this show would believe that Ed does not even, at least to some extent, have that problem. I'm sure most people assume he has it times 10, but we really just don't know. But it's not likely that it's false. And it doesn't seem like Kelly would be the type that would just pick a fight like that. So you don't defend me. And then what did he say? He said something, I came clean. In the edit, what did he come clean about? What is he referring to, coming clean? Oh, that he cheated? Is that what he's talking about? Well, good for you, Ed, that you cheated like a child and then you waited a long time and then admitted it when you knew that everyone knew. So good for you? Is that what he's referring to?
You don't defend me. You don't. And I came clean today. And I apologized.
I literally had to sit there in the jacuzzi quiet the whole time.
No, you didn't, Liz. You got what you deserved. That's what you got. You deserve that.
So you see him crying because I think for him, it's real. There's an emotion happening, a sadness, a hurt, a fear, and that he doesn't have control over. He doesn't have control over that. And it might be due to a misperception. It might be misplaced, but it's a real feeling. But it doesn't mean that it makes any sense, and it certainly doesn't give him excuse to just start blaming her. This is exactly what I predicted would happen, did I not? It didn't start to happen, but it is happening right now, seemingly. It's just this onslaught of accusations. Liz seems not very perturbed, which makes me wonder if she has entered a new phase, maybe phase 3 of this. And in phase 1, she would be destroyed by it or really try to deal with it. We could maybe point to that infamous phone call that was leaked, that she recorded, that she was pleading and crying and was deeply affected by this onslaught that he goes into. And then phase 2 was exemplified perhaps by the engagement party, and he was starting to do that onslaught, and she was like, no, I'm out, and she just started walking away. And then afterwards, when they were fighting back at home, she seemingly had a pretty good perspective of, no, you just never admit that you're wrong. And that's the bottom line. And he would do his thing, and she would sort of be smoke-screened and distracted, but she would come back eventually to the thing. Seemingly, I don't think it's hard to know what happens off camera, but the way it looked, she was having good boundaries, but in the end, she just essentially would let it happen overall, but at least in the moment, she wasn't pleading with him and desperate. Phase 3 might be she's just kind of over it. She's been through it so many times, maybe she's a little numb, which would be concerning. Or she's just differentiated, be like, I've learned it doesn't do any good to try to have a rational conversation with him, so I'm just going to say these little phrases. It's just, there's no point. And so I just know that what he's saying doesn't make any sense. Let's rewind that.
I came clean today. And I apologized.
I literally had to sit there in the jacuzzi quiet the whole time.
No, you didn't, Liz. You got what you deserved. That's what you got. You deserve that ass chewing. I'm serious.
Wow. I don't care how fucking triggered he is. For him to say that she deserved the ass chewing, even if the accusation from Kelly, it's edited, but I think it was probably representative of what happened. Even if Kelly was out of line, all he said was, you interrupt. That's not a high accusation. And let's say that that was unfair, and it's objectively unfair, which I doubt that it is, but let's say it was. And Liz just didn't say anything, didn't step in. I'm just trying to imagine if I were in Ed's shoes and someone accused me of something that I felt like wasn't fair, and it hurt. And, you know, maybe I would be a little hurt if Stacy didn't say anything. And by her silence, it would seem like maybe she might agree with it, which would hurt. But that does not justify, one, an ass chewing. But I wouldn't even call what Angela did an ass chewing. I would call it, it should be a crime to do that sort of thing. Maybe it is. It should be a crime what Angela did to Liz. That level of intimidation, without touching, you can be violent to someone. And there are laws in the books that will define like assault degree 4 along those lines. Like in intimate partner violence, you don't have to hit your partner to be convicted or charged with intimate partner violence or assault degree 4 in state of Washington anyway. At least last I was dealing with this kind of law, and because they were mandated to be treated by me, and a lot of them would have been charged and convicted of assault 4, and their sentence had to do with mandated intimate partner violence treatment. But anyway, yeah, that's upsetting. Wow. Yeah. My only hope is that Liz is like, nope, I didn't deserve what Angela did. All I said was I was going to bed. I kept trying to do it. She kept badgering me. And all I said was she overtalks, and then she proceeded to overtalk in the most grandiose way. And no, I didn't defend Ed because Kelly is right about that. I've told Ed that, and Ed doesn't listen to me. Ed doesn't listen to Kelly. Ed doesn't listen to anyone. I was happy someone else was saying something so that it's not just from me. And yeah, I didn't defend him. And now he's hurt, I guess, that I didn't. And so my only hope is that for Liz, she can see through that. But we know that she's been through a lot. I think we only know the topic sentence of a very long novel of difficulties that she's been through. So who knows? But there's also a possibility that given that history, it's just really hard for her to feel like she matters and to push back on things like this. I don't know. It's really yeah. Wow. I didn't realize this would happen. I don't know why I didn't think this was happening. For some reason I thought this season, this series would be kind of less dramatic because they would have all the therapy to kind of make it interesting. But just right away, it's like it's not only a repeat of stuff we've seen before, but it almost feels worse now for some reason.
Quiet the whole time.
No, you didn't, Liz. You got what you deserved. That's what you got. You deserve that ass chewing. I'm serious. She was inappropriate. But you...
Yeah, but someone who cares so much about my safety didn't care. And I'm the one who was
Liz.
calm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like directly related to what he claims is the problem, that she didn't stick up for him. And all Kelly was doing was saying a few things from across the hot tub. Now, Ed did eventually help, but now he's negated that because he's saying, you deserved it anyway. So the irony upon irony, you can cut it with a knife. It's so thick, right? That's not a phrase.
You brought that on yourself.
Also, I'm here for you.
No, you're not.
Kelly
You're not
asked
here.
one question.
You're never here from me.
You cut him off so fast.
You're never here from me.
There's a pretty good possibility that if we gave Ed a lie detector test, which doesn't exist, that he would pass when he says that phrase, you're never there for me. There's a pretty good chance that he actually objectively believes that in the triggered state that he is in right now. And it's ridiculous because that doesn't make any sense, even given what we've seen, which of course is 0.1% of the relationship. But it's ridiculous, right? And it says something about the black and white nature of his perspective, of his personality, the regressive childishness that's inside of him, not because he's a bad person, but because of the traumas he's been through. And it says something about how this conversation, it's not advisable that if Liz has more differentiation in this moment, she should either just try to get through it and go to bed, or she should separate. Now, the production probably wouldn't be appreciative of that, but lock herself in the bathroom or something, because there's really no benefit to continuing. I've seen this in my sessions, for example. When I see a couple, I will, most of the time, it kind of depends on the goal or what I think would be helpful to them, but most of the time I will step in and say, okay, let's talk to me. I'll prevent them from talking to each other. I'll be like, okay, no more talking to each other, talk to me. It's been a while since I've had a session like this, because frankly, it's been a while since I've had a new client. This is indicative of new clients. And what I mean by new clients could be like the first 2 years of a couple. So it's been a while since I've had this, but I did have this a lot. I had a very educational experience in one of the very first couples I worked with at my internship, and they were doing this to each other, and I determined it would be better if they stopped talking to each other, because it was just, at the very least, it was not helpful use of their time, not a good use of their time in therapy, because we just had an hour. And at worse, it was actually damaging each other. And it was, some therapists, because of their own traumas, will stop people from having conversations because it's scary for the therapist. And so I have to always ask that question, am I stopping this for them or me? Because if it's for me, I can't stop them from arguing, because for me, it has to be for them. So I determined it was, for them and not for me. And I'm pretty comfortable for some reason. And I didn't grow up with any conflict. I'm not comfortable with conflict, but I'm not uncomfortable with clients that are in conflict. It's kind of weird. There's certain things that trigger me, and that just doesn't. I'm just like, I think it's mostly because I just don't feel responsible. And I guess I don't have traumas around that growing up. Anyway, so I was trying to step in, and they wouldn't stop, and they just kept escalating. So I picked up this poster board, and I walked over across the room and put it between them so they couldn't see each other, because I was trying to do anything I could to break the pattern. And then they were doing this around the card, going, and another thing. And so eventually, from my memory anyway, I just gave up and waited for them to fizzle out, because there wasn't anything else I could do. So if I were Liz or Liz's friend, I'd be like, just go to the bathroom and take a bath, lock the door, and say, we'll talk about it tomorrow. I would also have them establish a rule that when they get past a certain point, that each of them has the ability to call that measure to say, okay, I think we've crossed the line. We'll talk about it later, but right now, one or both of us is in a state that means we're not going to get anything constructive done.
Sat there and complained.
No.
Everybody called me a cheater today, but then you confessed to cheating, and I literally had to sit there.
Not a game, not in a relationship.
It's not a game.
It was a game. It was a little. It was a little therapeutic
I sat
game.
there quiet the whole time.
You got your ass served to you. That had nothing to do with me. That was you.
I'm the only one who's calm.
No, you're not.
Got your ass served to you. And he's happy about it. He's happy about it. That's what points to what I was saying a while back, which was, Ed is insulted. He tried to defend himself. It didn't really work out. He couldn't win. And he will feel, because of the black and whiteness, for someone without this disorder, they would feel a little bad. But for black and white individuals, for people with these kinds of early childhood traumas and a splitting of the self, they will instantly, there's no middle ground. It's either I'm perfect and superior in all ways to everybody, or I'm nothing. And when that plummet happens, some very desperate defense mechanisms, very patterned defense mechanisms will kick in. And I was like, I worry that when he gets alone with Liz, he's going to do everything in his power, and all of its ridiculousness, because there's not a lot to hold on to. He will do everything in his power to make him very superior to her, which means he has to make her inferior. He has to break her down. And here we are. I don't know if that's what's happening. I can't open up Ed's brain and look at something and and know that that's what's happening. But it does fit the model, which is interesting. So that's why we have science, and that's why we have personality models, is so that we can predict the future. When we see behavior as clinicians and personality theorists, we have constructs of personality so that we can say, well, this pattern is explained by this, which will potentially point to future behavior, and here's what we can predict that might happen given this scenario. So this is the model of personality theory at work, that I could have predicted this. Because we haven't really seen this. Well, maybe we did. I don't know if I had this as part of the hypothesis at the engagement party, that Ed would have felt inferior somehow because Liz's old partner, or not, that's what Ed was saying, that Liz's old employee and old friend came to the engagement party and decided to start a fight with Liz. I don't know if I had this part of it, because you remember Ed was just so that you guys are lesbians together or something, and they're just like, what? And was doing everything in his power to demean her, Liz. And I don't think I had this. I wonder why I introduced it and it ended up working out. So that, meaning that at the engagement party, off camera, because we didn't see the whole fight, and maybe they did film it, which I'm guessing they did, but they just didn't include it because they might not have even had a release from this friend, right? Who knows? Anyway, so they, for Ed, it's possible that he felt like he was low class, or he just had this paranoia. And I did talk about this, that he had this paranoia that he was going to lose Liz. It had the question mark for him of like, were they involved together? But someone else with a different history and a different personality would have been like, well, no, I don't. Just because the friend is a lesbian doesn't mean that. And even if Liz did have those tendencies, there's no reason to believe they've been together. Maybe they did, and maybe I'll ask a question, but I literally have no data. They are fighting. That's not data. But because he felt inferior then, that's why so it's that inferior, superior thing. It might be more important than the concern of loss of attachment. Interesting.
I really didn't say anything in the jacuzzi. It's always like the Angie show or Ed show. So that's just kind of like how I felt. I don't think that I deserve that.
You definitely did not deserve that. Under no circumstances did you deserve that. I'm just going to call it an assault. Yeah. Yes, Liz, you did not deserve it. Not even in the least. You didn't deserve even the beginning of that conversation when Angela's trying to force you to stay in the hot tub when all you wanted to do was go to bed. You didn't deserve that small transgression, and then we got 1,000 times worse in the next 5 minutes. The producers had to step in because they were concerned Angela was going to hit you because you said that she overtalks people, and then she proceeded to overtalk you. You would think that Angela would have pride in the fact that she overtalks people because that's all she ever does. So, yes, you did not deserve that. And you certainly didn't deserve your partner saying that you deserved it and that he's happy and gleeful that someone abused you in that way. Yeah, you did not deserve that.
I know she's mad because, in a way, she kind of got her ass served to her, which I feel good about. But then I feel bad because that's the woman I love. The next 2 weeks will determine the rest of my life.
So, I'm always wondering, like, are there shenanigans? Are they just arguing? But then the one-on-one conversation that happens directly after, if we're going with the notion that this is truthful state, this is a truthful representation of how he feels. It says something. What's he going to say later on? I predict that what he will say is, he'll have some political statement like, yeah, I admit that she did not deserve the way that Angela talked to her, because that doesn't threaten his superiority. But then he'll say a but she should have stood up for me. And that was really hurtful that she didn't stand up for me or something. So it'll still be this, but it'll be a nicer version of this. This is probably what's there all the time.
And I rather this come out now. Like, Liz and I need to be broken down to our foundation, and then we need to be built up.
I don't think Liz needs any therapy, honestly. Well, she probably does, but she certainly doesn't present anything on the show that leads me to believe that she's desperate for some kind of change. I'm sure she has some issues, but they're so much more eclipsed by other people on the show. So this idea of broken down, therapy is not about breaking down. Change isn't about breaking someone down. It's about self-discovery and taking therapy by the reins yourself. And this is common in couple therapy, especially. Two people will come in, and I would say 95% of the couples that come into my office, seemingly the only reason why they're there is because they're like, you really need to help this person. And they're both saying that. And then over time, it's my job to demonstrate that they're in a safe environment for each of them to explore what they can do themselves to change or to raise questions about their own behavior, to learn and to heal, both of them. Because no one comes into my office. No, I've never met a single human being, including myself, who didn't need years of therapy and wouldn't benefit from years of therapy. So yeah, does Liz need therapy? Yeah, but anyway. I'm debating whether or not I should just not even react to these kinds of statements, because we've seen it before. It's just worse now. And I wonder if it's boring. But I do get a lot of comments from people who will say that it helps them because they went through stuff like this, or they're going through stuff like this. And even though they intellectually know that it's not okay, it helps to hear someone in my position state it definitively. You might need to hear things like that 1,000 times before it really starts to sink in. And so I hope there's at least some usefulness to me having to endure this. I mean, I'm guessing you might have had to have watched this, although some of you will watch me watch this even though you didn't watch the show. So I just hope that I hope that there's some benefit to us doing this together. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.